Good morning, namaste, hola, bonjour, and marhaban. This is Namya Joshi, your host for the day. Welcome to the second episode of the podcast, Each One Teach 10, an amazing world of STEM, an inspiring venture where we will be discussing that STEM is a part of every day for every kid. We all will learn together how to build a STEM culture. In the first episode, we collaborated with Mrs. Rupinder Gogia, Principal, Satpal Middle School, India. And today, we have with us an expert in the area of game-based learning and teaching, game design and development. He is none other than Mr. Steve Isaacs, an EdTech influencer and professional learning specialist at Insight to Education. It's my pleasure to have you here on my podcast, sir.
It's wonderful to be here, Namya.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Isaacs, I know you personally, but our audience is eager to know more about you. So, could you please introduce yourself?
Sure. My name is Steve Isaacs. I teach game design and development at William Allen Middle School and Ridge High School in Basking Ridge, New Jersey. I've been teaching for 28 years total. I started my career in special education and moved into technology while my wife and I actually opened a technology training and gaming center, which is where I really got very interested in game based learning and technology and education and all of those things. So that led to where I am today. Many years later.
That's really great and influencing. I really believe in game based learning, and I know that you have umpteen case studies and best practices in using games in the classrooms for better student engagement. I'm excited to hear from the horse's mouth. So, tell us something about that.
So, well, great question. Games, kids are excited about and play games. I mean, that part we know. Um, Kids are also experts often when it comes to games, and you've demonstrated that in our challenges that we've been doing with the Rube Goldberg challenges. And things like that are a great example of how when we present kids with meaningful challenges or challenges that are meaningful to them, they definitely rise to the occasion. And oftentimes, when that also, intersects with the use of games, which is, often what kids are so excited about, it makes great sense. So, you know, I think there's just so much to that. And I've seen it over and over. Uh, I was teaching computer programming a long time ago. And even in that environment, it only made sense to at least offer the option for kids to create games as what they were programming. And that seemed to, be something the kids really enjoyed doing. And then, when I started actually teaching game design and put the power of learning in kids' hands in terms of using, innovative tools and often games, it became more obvious that this was the case. And it's shifted a lot because originally the field of game based learning talked a lot about using games as experiential learning environments to learn concepts. Like, so maybe you used a game like Civilization to teach about historical, civilizations and such. And then what I found most amazing, especially since I was teaching content creation and game design, is that these sandbox game environments like Minecraft and Fortnite Creative, which also happen to be the commercial games that kids were playing at home, once we kind of allowed them to use them in order to meet the learning objectives, it became a whole, amazing story. In fact, oftentimes I get an email from a parent or a note from a parent that's asking why I'm giving so much homework to my students. And I have to let them know that I don't assign homework. This happens to be the one example where their child might be doing more work than they typically would for another class because they are enjoying what they're doing and they're truly engaged. And when they come across a problem, and you probably can speak to this also, they want to find a solution. They want to solve it because, again, it has meaning to them. So that's been, just, I could tell countless stories of where that has been the case, or where a student would say to me, even just the other day, I had a kid say, this is my favorite class, and I really like this because even though I'm working for a long time, I mean, I'm making a game, he said, and I really enjoy what I'm doing, and I don't mind putting in the time. And, that's a different experience for a lot of kids in school, I think.
Yes, Mr. Isaacs, I truly agree with you. Game based learning plays an important role in teaching by making students to collaborate, communicate, interact, and work in teams. Through the game, concepts are introduced and students can develop and improve their skills without losing motivation that they can't learn it as it is hard. And I personally love to play Minecraft as a
Yeah.
game. Yes, sir. And I know it can be used for serious education. I read about you being the producer of Mindfair. What do you think about Minecraft matters to education?
So yeah, Mindfair. Well, Mindfair was a really, a wonderful event that we ran for 4 years, where we did these large scale conventions around Minecraft. And what's so neat about that, and then thinking about it from an education standpoint, is that there's a huge community around Minecraft to begin with, because it is such a popular game. And as you've seen with Minecraft, I mean, look at all the possibilities. Like when we had our Minecraft shows, we had big influencers, or YouTube creators, or Twitch streamers that were, the idols of many of these kids, right? But also, when you look at it, this is an area where these creators manage to take their passion and create a very exciting, actually living out of this. And the neat thing at Mindfair too is, so we saw so many different areas where Minecraft intersected so many aspects of different people's lives. And we did have a very active learning part of it. I managed the learning lab and the inspiration stage, where we brought people to do presentations, and we did learning content. Like we would have like class sessions all day during the event. And and that was interesting too, because we engaged parents with their kids during these sessions, so it actually got to show the parents the power of learning that was taking place. And then when you take that to school, uh, I've been continually amazed to see the interesting ways teachers and students have used Minecraft as a creative teaching and learning tool. The fact, like we talked about before, of it being a sandbox environment really becomes, it's funny because it is a game, but in education it can be very much seen as a tool. um, it's kind of like that blank canvas where kids can create whatever they can imagine, but also do that in line with learning outcomes. And in a similar note, educators have done some amazing things in terms of creating worlds that provided a learning experience within the virtual world, which again is engaging to kids. So I just think, and then, gosh, when we talk about STEM, and that's what your show is about, and
Yes,
this,
sir.
the potential for things like redstone and command blocks and coding in Minecraft are tremendous in terms of automation, problem solving. You had even mentioned collaboration. With what I teach, in particular with game design, for years I was using tools where it was mostly one person, kind of working on the game on their computer, because there was no collaborative, aspect to the software. And then you get something like Minecraft, where, eight kids could be in a world together, collaborating and building a masterpiece, and each taking on different roles within the process, and communicating their needs. You'll find a kid who is especially good with command blocks and coding, and others that are, you know quite proficient at building, but might not have this the skills or the interest in the coding side. And when you could put kids like that together and have them kind of work to their strengths, and communicate about, both sides of that, I think that's tremendous. So I every single day kids amaze me with what they can do in a game like Minecraft. And the other thing is, it really does leverage student expertise when we put that, when we empower students to demonstrate their learning and don't kind of constrain them as much as we might. Um, so, I see kids just, do things that I know or I don't know how to do or how they did, but I know that it took a lot of work and a lot of iteration and such. So I think it's just a very, very powerful tool in learning. And it's transformed or changed my approach to teaching and learning, where as a teacher we often feel like we're supposed to be the ones to teach the students how to do something and then have them do what we taught them, rather than providing open-ended challenges and allowing them to even sometimes learn what they have to learn, because that's part of the problem solving process.
That's really true, Mr. Isaacs. And Minecraft actually helps the kids to learn problem solving techniques, reading and writing skills, and also teaches them how they can manage the resources. So, how do
Yes.
you think that teachers can use and teach game based learning and STEM together? And I've experienced that same thing working for the NASEF and other global challenges. So, what do you have to say about that?
Sure. So we've done a number of challenges like that have, so again, it comes down to the in those cases, it's presenting a challenge that's somewhat open ended. And then, if kids are using a game, be it Minecraft or Fortnite creative mode or any of the other, kind of content creation environments, they're using those things again kind of as a tool. But the challenge gives them some parameters to work within. So the NASEF Rube Goldberg challenges, I just love, I've been having my students create Rube Goldberg machines in Fortnite and Minecraft for a couple of years. And, so what they engage in there is they engage in the design process. In my class, they first have to design and think through what they're trying to create. Then they go ahead and create it. And then they go through the whole iterative design process of testing it and seeing where it failed and fixing it and testing it again and all of that. So, you know, they're they happen to be working in a game environment there, but they're demonstrating and demonstrating mastery in the content area as well. So what we've been doing with NASEF currently, as you know, is we've been introducing different simple machines and sort of building on these concepts. So kids are presented with um, the idea, and then they use something like Minecraft to prototype their build and make something interesting happen, and then as the weeks go on and they learn about new simple machines each week, then they can add those to their growing ideas of this like ultimate Rube Goldberg machine. And then in the spring or January to April, as you know, we're going to have a big digital Rube Goldberg machine contest where they're going to take all of those skills and build, in teams, a full Rube Goldberg machine, which really brings a lot of different, skills together. And similar to that, we have a really exciting project coming up with NASEF as well, called Farmcraft, where we're working with the Department of Agriculture or Department of State, and we're working with a number of different countries and having students solve real problems around agriculture and around biotechnology and bioseeds and food security, all within Minecraft. And in that case, we're going to be doing some interesting things where we're going to, you know, um, create a sort of a modified Minecraft world that will introduce different, aspects to these challenges. So even though kids are used to playing Minecraft and there will be a lot of Minecraft gameplay involved, there will be other factors for them to take into account, because they're going to need to, work within these constraints of different biomes and different, growing conditions and interesting things like that. So that's going to be super exciting, because again, we're going to have a lot of learning, involved, and we're going to have experts in the areas of agriculture as part of the program to teach some of these concepts. And then again, the exciting part, often is when kids get into the game and are have a challenge and have to, kind of complete that within the game. And in this case, there will be a lot of game elements, because they'll have different factors to take into account when they're, you know, working on the growth and such, on the different crops and whatnot, the farming aspects. So we're excited about that, and it's just another example of, you know, when you just you know, take some planning and organize something that could be presented to a wide audience, that you could really engage many kids, and also in cases like that, bring communities of students together around the world. Quite honestly, even, with the Rube Goldberg uh, activities, I've been so excited to see, the groups that, like your group, and there are a few other wonderful groups of kids in India and some in Australia, and of course a number in the US. Um, but there are, people all around the world that are now engaged in a similar activity at the same time, which I think is phenomenal.
It's really insightful. I also believe that esports enhances your research skill and you tend to rack your brains for any project. Well, I've noticed and heard from my friends that there's still stigma around the games and how parents see the games being used in education. So, how do we know with the parents?
That's, that's the $1 million question, right? um
Yes, sir.
I think a lot of that comes from parents, seeing the value, like, bringing us back to something like the Rube Goldberg project. I've heard from many parents who are very excited about what their students are doing and their children are doing, and the fact that they see, in this case in particular, that it's directly tied to STEM activities. I think a lot of it is educating maybe the parents. Minecraft again continues to blow me away, because the engineering the engineering skills and the computer science skills that students employ when they're building these projects, I mean, it's remarkable. In fact, like your your project, it seems like I would think your parents must be supportive, and they, I hope, have seen the amazing work that you've done, like with the windmills, and the you did so many things with the screw activity, and teaching others through what you did in those builds. And so where you're also, I noticed that you're doing is creating tutorials to teach other kids how to do things. To me, when we start to take our learning and then teach other, which is, I guess, interesting, because that's a lot of the idea behind your podcast, right? Like, each one
Yes,
teach
sir.
10. You're teaching many more than 10 with a lot of those tutorials. And I love that a game like Minecraft, the way, see, here's what I think. The way that we learn things in Minecraft is often from other people, from tutorials, from resources that we find out there. And then, like in your example, if we can get kids to then also contribute back to that learning community, I think what we're doing is we're learning how to learn, and we're teaching kids how to learn. And I hope that the parents are seeing that more and more. um, and I do believe that they are. You had mentioned esports, and when it comes to esports, there's so much more than just the gameplay. There's the people behind the scenes. There's the video editing skills that kids can learn. There's the shoutcasting or broadcasting skills they could learn. There's all sorts of IT technical skills, and it just goes on and on. And those are all important job areas that when kids graduate from school, they take with them, and I think leave school better prepared for life after school than they might through some of the more traditional courses and such. So I do hope that people are seeing that. Also, the game industry is a multi-billion-dollar industry. I think it's surpassed the movie industry and most other entertainment industries and all sorts of other areas out there. So the reality is, school should be about preparing kids for life after school. And you know, like with me teaching game design, we're actually at a point in time where leaving school with those skills makes a child marketable, and those are STEM careers, which I think a lot of people are excited about seeing their children get interested in. So um I think I like to think that we've turned quite a corner in terms of that stigma. I've been around this for a very long time, and I remember when it was a lot more of trying to convince stakeholders, and now it's becoming so much more commonplace. And I think that the way that something like Minecraft has been framed in education as a tool has really helped that tremendously.
Yes, sir. In fact, my parents have always motivated me in what I do, and it has helped me to have a never give up attitude. I'm sure our audience would like to know that where we can find you online.
Sure. Um, I'm very active on Twitter, as you know. That's where you and I do most of
Yes,
our
sir.
communicating. So there it's at Mr. like MR underscore Isaacs, ISAACS. And, I'm also everywhere else on social media, but Twitter is definitely where I um, am most in tune, and have really used that as the platform where I interact and collaborate with parents, educators, students, and things around these topics. So that's the best place for sure.
Thank you so much, Mr. Isaacs, for that. Before we sign off, any takeaway for our audience?
Well, yes. One of the things that I'm very passionate about is student choice in learning and also student voice. So the student choice piece is what, like, in other words, in my class or in other classes, I don't think that we have to have every child necessarily use a game as the learning tool, but I think having it be a choice really helps. So when it comes to something like Minecraft, if a child is expected to um, sort of demonstrate their understanding on a topic of study, like let's say ancient Egypt. Maybe a student would actually enjoy writing a paper about Egypt. That's wonderful. Go ahead and write the paper. Some students would like to create maybe a cartoon that demonstrates that. And others might like to build out their world in Minecraft or Fortnite or other tools. And I think when we give them those choices, we empower them and honor the way they like to learn. So I think that's important. The student voice piece too is that when we allow kids to, um, create their projects for a public audience, I think that's especially important because we encourage their writing style and things for other people out there that might read them. So I like to have my kids write blog posts as a lot of their reflections and publish their games so others can play them. And what I want to, really, um, you know, share my excitement about is the fact that you are creating this podcast. What a great opportunity for you to share with the world, to demonstrate your interest, to um, learn with and from others. So I really am so pleased that you reached out to me and that you're doing this podcast. What if I could ask, what grade in school are you? What grade level?
I'm in eighth, sir.
You're in eighth, right? So that's
Yes.
I teach eighth grade and high school, and I would love for one of my students to decide to have their very own podcast. my kids do write game reviews, so a lot of them have fairly active blogs. But I think what you're doing is phenomenal, and I think what you and your friends are doing with our Rube Goldberg challenges is phenomenal, and it really makes me feel excited about the part that I'm playing in all this when I see the enthusiasm and the hard work that students like you put into it. So, bravo and thank you for everything that you're doing for the learning community.
Thank you so much, Mr. Isaacs. I've always believed that game based learning is the best way to engage the students like us in the classrooms. There was so much to learn from the ideas that you shared today.
My absolute pleasure. Thank you, Namya.
Thank you, sir. And I'm sure you all will agree that game based learning with STEM helps in growth mindset and reduces the fear of failure. It helps in preparing the students of my age and generations to come for the careers in the STEM fields. After all, game based education is here to stay. Thank you
Absolutely.
everyone for listening to this episode, and I'll see you in the next one. Till then, each one teach 10.